Now, these guys don't quite have it just the way they want it. Having said all this, they got really surprised and very seriously shaken up last January, February, December, January, February, March. You see, George Bush got a free ride into Afghanistan because of 9/11. A salute. There were some of us who did demonstrate against that war, but he really pretty much got what he wanted. He was fighting terrorism. He was supposed to have gotten the Taliban. He said the most single important thing is to get this Osama bin Laden, the demonized individual we get. When he couldn't find him, he said, it's not important at all, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Now, they expected the very same thing the next year, and that didn't happen. Rather extraordinary things began to happen. And there are people in this room who played a good role in making that happen. But hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of people began to voice their objection and demonstrating all over the United States. Not just about the ones we heard about in San Francisco and Washington, D.C., but in L.A., in Seattle, in places all around the country. All over the world, people were demonstrating. In London, 2 million people, the largest demonstration in English history. In Spain, 81% of the people against the war. In Madrid, in every city, in every town, every night. In Spain, nothing starts till about 10 at night. They were civilized people, out there every night demonstrating against this war for weeks on end. In Italy, 78% of the people against the war. In Greece, 90-something% of the people against the war. Demonstrations in every one of these countries. In Germany, the Germans against the war, even the Germans. No ethnic, Finland, in Lithuania, in Indonesia, in Argentina, in Nigeria, in Mexico. Vicente Fox, just aching to be another lapdog for the American president, couldn't do it, right? Because all of Mexico is against that war. In Japan, big demonstrations in Osaka, Kyoto, Tokyo, against the war, Indonesia, you could go on and on. All over the world, coordinated actions like this. This shook the hell out of the White House. These guys were really, they dropped that stuff about shock and awe. We'll go in, we're going to hit everything and just, the ones we don't kill will be left vegetables and we'll just stroll in. Then they dropped that and they said, this is all for democracy. This is all for liberation, you see. And they've had to hold to that line. And today now they're caught in a people's resistance. They're subjected to something like anywhere from 10 to 20 attacks a day. They're losing, according to the U.S. commander, 3 to 6 men with 40 seriously wounded every week. They're in a war, a people's war now. And they could do real counterinsurgency, and they're doing some of it. They're killing a lot of Iraqis. They're rounding people up and they're shooting them. But they also can't quite do that. They have to keep this pretense that we're here as liberators, not occupiers. We're here to help these poor little backwood people. 5,000-year civilization, we're helping these poor little backward people, teach them how to rule themselves. We're doing all this stuff, you see? And so he's got the power. He's got the firepower. He's got the death delivery. He can go and destroy everything that's standing in Iraq, but he doesn't have the political power. He's faced with a political situation that we've created and we've got him boxed in. And that's an important thing to remember. And when people say, oh, we demonstrated, and he had the war anyway, I said, I never doubted that this war would happen. These demonstrations weren't to stop the war. It was to contain it. It was to box them in. It was to hold them in and show them that the people are still there. And the people are very, very much in motion. Now, these were countries, what countries I'm talking about? Mexico, Japan. They have no historical or cultural link to Iraq, or religious or ethnic link. They were supporting this war for two reasons. One, out of regard for the Iraqi people, and two, out of regard for themselves, too. Because they were opposing the idea of this planetary monarch arising and saying, I shall decide who lives and who dies. We, the United States now, will honor no international treaties. They said that. These treaties are not to be honored. We will attack any country we want whenever we say, and when we deem that that country might be a menace or meets our disapproval. And we will reserve the right to be first to use nuclear power. And now look what he's doing. With overweening utter arrogance, he turns to the UN, the same UN he was spitting at just last year, spitting at them and saying, you got to decide whether you're the United Nations or the League of Nations. We'll go in with or without you. We don't need you. And all the yahoos were saying, yeah, USA, whoa, whoa, as if they were watching a goddamn basketball game or something. Well, now he turns around and goes to the UN and asks them to help pick up the blood tab. Pick up some of the blood on this and pick up some of the financial costs. And the UN is saying, that's very interesting, very interesting. You know he's lost political control when Kofi Annan, who jumps to anything the U.S. wants, who spends his whole life, oh yes, U.S., oh yes, U.S. Yes. When Kofi Annan turns around and says, hey, this is the United Nations, we're not going to get into this kind of stuff. Go in, come in with us, but at an advisory role, and the U.S. calls all the shots. So how can you refuse an offer like that? And he says, we refuse. Kofi Annan said, we refuse. Because the people of the world have refused, and the people of the world are making themselves heard. And that's the important thing. That the people of the world make themselves heard, that we fight, that we struggle, that we go at this thing, that we don't compromise, we don't give up, we don't get discouraged, we just keep going. Well, some people say to me, oh, you got a conspiracy theory, huh? I always run into that. Do you get that? I mean, you think these people intend to do this deliberately? I said, no, they're just sleepwalkers and they just happen to they throw a dart at the map and say, well, let's attack Iraq. Yeah, or let's attack this country there. Of course they plan. Of course they plan these things. I said, you really think there's a group of men sitting around in a room? Somehow that image really throws them out. Sitting around in a room and planning this? I said, oh, no, they're not sitting around in a room. They're meeting on carousels, you know, and they're talking like that. Or they're skydiving and they're holding hands saying, yeah, we got to do this, get a new Uruguay round and increase the military budget and increase our profits and all that. Yeah, of course they sit around in rooms. Where the hell else you think they're going to sit around? They got plenty of rooms in the White House. They got plenty of rooms at the Council for Foreign Relations. They got plenty of rooms at the Bilderberg Conference. They got plenty of rooms at the Knickerbocker Club in New York, at the Bohemian Grove, and the Bohemian Club in San Francisco. You know, back in 91, I looked at the Bilderberg Conference attendees. They meet every, 2-3 years, named after Bilderberg, the hotel where they first met. These are the ruling elites, the leaders, political, economic, corporate leaders with a few top media people and a few straight professors to write their position papers for them, a few little lackey-hired prostitutes. Apology to the prostitutes who are working girls who don't have a choice in this thing. And I'm looking at this 1990, and so, this big stack. And so immediately, of course, I turned to the United States. I want to see who from the United States went to the Bilderberg Conference. The first name is no surprise. David Rockefeller of Rockefeller Brothers Association. Aren't you glad you got representation here in these world conferences? They're protecting our interests here, Ron. The second name really puzzled me and surprised me. I had heard of him, and I know he sent his National Guard down to Guatemala and seemed like one of those governors who was cozy with the CIA or something, but I knew nothing about him. It said, the Honorable Bill Clinton, Governor of Arkansas. I said, what the hell's the Governor of Arkansas doing, rubbing shoulders and holding hands with David Rockefeller? And then 6 months later, I found out. He was suddenly in the media as the front-runner Democratic candidate for President of the United States. He was the guy who was able to get WTO through past a Democratic Congress. So of course they plan, of course they are always planning. And we too have to organize and we have to plan. So remember that the empire achieves its goals by consuming the resources of the republic. The empire achieves its power by devouring the liberties of the republic. So the fight we face now, the struggle against U.S. globalism, is a struggle for the heart and soul of democracy itself. Thank you for your kind attention.